Hello everyone. In this section we're going to be covering saving and loading in Corona, or serialization. So what we're basically going to show is how to save something to the app and device and how to load it from there as well. So the first thing I want you to do is click on Corona, go to File, Show Project Sandbox. This will show you the folder of all the apps that you've made. You should have quite a few at this point. And in it you'll see there's a documents and a temp folder within each of those simulated apps. This is the two folders that you would get in any app that you create. The documents is for anything you want to store on more of a long term. It'll stay there even after the app closes. And the temp folder is just for any temporary things, something that you need to load or temporarily hold while the app's open. This is cleared quite regularly. So if you want something such as a save file that's regularly used, you want to use your documents folder. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at three of the library files that Corona has. The first one is the I/O library. This is the input-output library, so this is for saving things and loading things on the device using Corona. Within that, there is the object type of file. And file is used to open and read a file, close it. You can do all sorts of information specifically to a file as an object type. There's also a guide available, which all of these links are in the final example file. And this will go through some of the more complex systems that we don't cover in this section. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and create the data that we want to save. We're going to first play around with saving information to a file, and then we're going to load it. So we're going to go ahead and create some save data. And just do a string for now. This is our save string. You can put whatever you want in this string. Next thing we need to do is define a path. So for anything that you want to save, you have to set the path of the object that you're going to be saving. So we're going to do system path for file. We're going to give the name of the file. Make sure to leave some sort of extension. It's not required for this to save, but it certainly helps in reading it later and also looking at it ourselves. And then we're going to give the directory as systems.documents directory. And now we're just going to go ahead and create a file object, tell it to open. We're going to use the path that we just provided, and then we're going to use the string W. W stands for writing, so this is telling it that we're going to be writing something to this file. So it's preparing to write whatever we tell it into this file. Now this file doesn't exist. This path that we're leading to, mysave.txt, does not exist in this folder, so this will create it once we write information. So now we're going to go ahead and write our data. So we're going to use the save data that we already provided, and then go ahead, and once that's done, we can go ahead and run this. So if you have this in there, go ahead and save and run. And now if we check our sandbox, you'll see now that we have a file. And this file does not have our data because we did not close it yet. So let's go ahead and set this to io.close file. And then we'll go ahead and nil it out as well, just to be certain that it's no longer being saved or retained. So now if we show our project sandbox, we have our string. So in order for the information to finish, the writing, you have to close the file afterwards, otherwise this will not save the full data. So make sure that you always close, io.close, and then whatever file that you open using io to ensure that that information is held. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to try loading that information. So we can go ahead and delete all that from our main file. And now we're going to create the same path. So the system.path for file. Whatever you used as your name. So just check to make sure that you have the same name here. Capitalization is important. And then for the directory, we're going to do the same thing that we had before, which is system.documents directory. Now we're going to go ahead and open this just like we did before, except this time instead of doing the system for writing, we're going to do the system for reading. So we're going to do io open give it the path that we made, and then give R for read. So now this is going to load whatever our file was, the one that we created before, in load file, in the string that we created. And now we're going to use that string and go ahead and read it and find that data. So when you open a file like this, this is created as a file object. This is not a string yet, this is just a file object. So in order to convert that file object, we're going to turn it into a string. So we're going to do local loaded string, and do load file read, and we're going to do star A, which means to read it as a string. So it's going to take this data and read it as a string type. Instead of as a file type or as a number or anything like this, this makes it a string. So now we have local loaded string is load file read. So now we're going to print that, and let's go ahead and give that a run. And now we should have it print as whatever you had when you originally saved it. So this is loading the file that we made in the last section. Then we're opening it here, we're reading it as a string, and now we're printing the string. And just like before, just to be certain, you need to go ahead and close the file that you created. Like so. So now we're loading that string. And of course we could also write on top of that, change what's in there. So that's the basics for creating that section. In the next part of this section, we're going to look at JSON and how we can create a custom object type to save to the string within a file to make it much easier to load and respond to. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at JSON and the way to basically save a Lua table out quickly and easily through Corona. So the first thing you need to do is go ahead and require the JSON library. You do need to name it, so it'd be local JSON require JSON. You can also do this without parentheses as well. So once we've gone and created that, we're going to go ahead and just create a table. We have an example here in the final example, which I'm going to use. So I'm creating a table, giving it a name, a number, and then a table inside of it with 3 numbers. What we're going to do is we're going to encode that table using the JSON format. So we're going to do that table, a JSON version, and then do JSON.encode. What this does is it takes the table and puts it in a new form that is one large string. So you'll see here we have JSON.encode save table. Now if we print the save table JSON, you'll see that now it's just one long string with string notation around each element that isn't a number. So you have number, colon, 54, then name, in strings, colon, then the string itself, and then the same for the table. So it creates this one string, and the nice part of that is now you can save this string the way that we used the save earlier, and it makes it much easier to save and load tables. So we're going to take this snippet of code that we used before. Instead of using this save data, we are going to save our JSON object. So now the mySaveFile.txt, if we go ahead and take a look at, we're going to see that it's the table in JSON format. Now this is, of course, is going to be much easier for us to load in the same way that we did before with loading. If we load and print out the data that we get, we're going to see that what's printing out is that JSON table. So now to get that JSON table in a way that we can use it again, we'll go ahead and say new table equals JSON.decode, and then use the loaded data from this loading that we just did. Of course, we could also just use this and decode it right after encoding it, but it's much better to see it after being saved and loaded. So new table, and now we can take this new table, let's just go ahead and loop through it, loop through each object in it, and print them out just to see what it looks like now. So you'll see now it's printing the number, the name, and the internal table as a string notation for its hexadecimal memory location. This is the table inside of it. It is these 3 numbers, but it can't print a table properly. we could loop internally on this and see these three numbers would still be there. So basically, JSON works as a quick and easy way to turn a table into a string for easy saving and loading. You can also use JSON for sending things over the internet. So if you ever create anything such as a Facebook or Twitter account, or you have an online storage for any app you make, you can use this to send data to and from a server quickly and easily. So that's the basics on serialization and using the JSON system. In the next section, we're going to cover the various media types available in Corona.